Africa needs to be freed from France more than any other country, and I'm talking mostly about Western Africa. Because there is no other country that is parasitizing off of this much territory. Not China, not Russia, not the United States, not the UK. In all of Africa, there are over a dozen former French colonies, but there are currently 14 of them that are not allowed to issue their own currency. It's France that prints it for them. It's called the CFA, and I believe that's the Central African franc. At least that was the abbreviation for it. The western region of Africa is incredibly resource rich. Petroleum, natural gas, uranium, oil, gold, diamonds, cocoa beans. These countries are commodity rich. They have a young and able working population, yet they are not allowed to take control of their own economy because of the former French ties that are still deep in these nations. And I'm sure this post is going to offend a lot of French people because you believe in liberté, égalité, fraternité. But you can only afford those three great luxuries because you guys are still exploiting a huge chunk of your former colonies. One of the reasons why France was able to easily afford so many nuclear reactors and be one of the largest nuclear power producers in Europe is because they got dirt cheap uranium from a former French colony of Niger. Not anymore. And as much as China and Russia's involvement in Africa is a threat to a lot of Western interests, they're the far better option if France is the only alternative. China has spent tens of billions of dollars over the past few decades building bridges, roads, highways, other key infrastructure for these former French colonies. And Russia, even though they may not have invested that kind of money, they have helped these former colonies overthrow corrupt French puppets. Long term, Russia is going to be a net negative in Africa because they have no idea how to establish any kind of government or a stabilized economy. All they know how to do is sow chaos, while China, on the other hand, can actually help further these economies. That's why China is angry at all of the instability that Russia has been causing. And I have no doubt in my mind that the United States is just waiting on the sidelines for some of these countries to have enough China-paid infrastructure in order to start setting up better trade deals. It will probably take a decade or more for this to happen, but mark my words. And it's my opinion that the United States, the UK, and other strong NATO members never call France out about these former French colonies because they know France will throw a tantrum and maybe threaten to pull out of NATO. And I'm sure another reason they keep quiet is because they also enjoy the benefits of these cheaper commodities in West Africa. But why can't these former colonies free themselves from this continued exploitation and economic manipulation? Well, they're working on it, at least the African states in the Sahel region. If you want to know where the Sahel is, here we go. It goes all across Africa. And three countries in particular, Burkina Faso, Gabon, and Niger, have been working to distance themselves from the CFA franc to have their own form of monetary value. But in my opinion, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of trust, but at least they're working on it. And I think they have a chance at this. And I'm sure a lot of people think that if these African countries abandon the French-issued currency, it'll lead to an economic meltdown. Maybe. I'm sure these countries would lose a lot of foreign direct investment, but what would it do for the people who actually live there? I'll bet you money that if these African areas can actually unite behind a common cause of freeing themselves from the CFA franc, maybe they can do it. I'm the Geo Hussar. It is the 21st century. Can we please throw off the vestiges of old colonialism? Thanks for watching.